Greetings, YouTube. One of my subscribers asked me to look at a document. It's a gaming document. I apologize at the top of my head. I don't remember who it was. And they want me to read this, and they wanted me to give my opinion and analyze it. They didn't just want me to give it a thumbs up or thumbs down and say, yes, I think it's good, yes, I think it's bad. They wanted me to look at it critically from my perspective. So, I know I shouldn't have to do this, but apparently I do. Everything I'm going to say in this video, every word out of my mouth is my subjective opinion. So if you don't want to listen to my subjective opinion, then don't. You don't have to. No one is making you. You're not going to hurt my feelings. All good. Just go watch another video of mine. Go watch somebody else's video. I'm happy with that. If you're going to comment below, make it constructive. But remember, this is my subjective opinion. That's all. So, the document in question is a quick primer for old school gaming by Matthew J. Finch and Mythmere Games. Now, the person asked me to look at this both from the perspective of, do I think the document will do what they're purporting it does, explain old school style gaming to the new generation of gamers who have never been exposed to it personally, and then to critically analyze it. And again, my subjective opinion. So, as a primer, for example, people who came to D&D in 2001, so all they've been exposed to with 3.5, or 4th edition, or I guess, I don't know what 5th edition does, I can't tell you. Or they went from 3.5 to Pathfinder. This primer will do exactly what the author's intention was. They nailed it. You read this, you will have a really great idea of what the flavor of old school gaming is, how the mechanisms are handled differently than the modern games. I would call them more complete. So you're good to go. Read this, see if it sounds like something you want to do, and go find yourself an old school game. Or realize it doesn't sound like something you do, and go find something else. So, in that regard, absolute success. Kudos to the authors. From this point on, I am analyzing the philosophy behind old school gaming. It is not a critique of this document. It is simply the document I am being asked to look at, but I am talking about the philosophy behind their Zen moments, as they're describing them. The Zen moments that help them to really grok old school gaming in a way that they had never been able to grok it before. Now remember, I started gaming in '78, so old school gaming was just gaming to me. And I remember it. It isn't fuzzy nostalgia. I may have warm fuzzies about some of the gaming books because I have great memories of them. I may have warm fuzzies about some of the characters, one of which is on my wall in a portrait. But I have no warm fuzzies about the actual game itself. Okay? So, if you don't think my credentials are solid enough to be making these comments, again, stop watching. Go elsewhere. Again, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Okay, so the first Zen moment, of course, is the most basic one, the one that I hear constantly whenever these discussions come up, and it's the reason I almost never comment ever, anywhere on this topic any longer, is ruling, not rules, which, as I've said 100 times in the past, is, for me, a recipe for disaster, because it's going to lead to inconsistency. No GM is ever going to make the same call twice if all he's doing is ruling, because the rules haven't been written down for them. Now, I don't have a problem ruling on the rules that are in the book, modifying them, changing them. I get no problem with that. But I want us to all be starting from the same basis. I want everybody to have the rules in front of them, metaphorically or physically, so everybody can see them and they can discuss, yeah, we don't think this rule works for us, let's change it. You can't do that if you're just running the rules through your head on the fly, encountering the same situation and making a different decision every single time. I've seen this happen. I have watched it as a player, I have done it as a GM, and it sucked. It created nothing but bad blood and disappointment. There was no nostalgia. There was no warm fuzzies. There was no, wow, this game really moves quickly. No, there were arguments, and there was infighting, and there were hard feelings. Whereas when we had rules written in front of us, that didn't happen. In addition, it goes also most time in old school gaming you don't use you don't use a rule, you make a ruling. So you need to understand that sentence, but it takes a flash of insight to really get it. Players can describe any action without needing to look up a character sheet or see if they can do it. The referee in turn uses common sense to decide what happens or rolls a die if he thinks there is some random element involved, and the game moves on. This is awesome if everyone in a fantasy game has either a major or minor in medieval history. Most of us don't. So if a person is presented with something that they don't know how to do in a complete system, they can say, my character knows how to do that. That's right here. Right there on his character sheet. So he knows how to do that. In fact, he's pretty good at it. And you roll for it and see if they succeed. Whereas the player in that same situation in an old school game, they don't know how to do it. So they are going to fail. You are going to punish the player for failing to understand what that situation should dictate in a real encounter. I don't expect you to know how to survive in the forest like someone who has been trained in special forces. I don't expect you to know how to turn a gardening tool into a spear, because I don't know if you can do that. I can do it. Hasn't been particularly applicable to games, I should point out. But your real-world skills and knowledge and my real-world skills and knowledge may have zero bearing on the game that we are trying to play. So, flat out, Zen Moment ruling, not rules. Don't want it. And remember, my subjective opinion. They then give some examples of describing the different situations between a modern and an old school style, and their examples are excellent. I applaud them. The next is Zen Moment, player skill, not character skill, and again, right back to the whole having a degree in medieval history. It says, you have to tell a referee whatever tall tale you're trying to get the city guard to believe. You have to decide for yourself if someone's lying to your character or telling the truth. In a zero game, you are always asking questions, telling the referee exactly what your character is looking at, and experimenting with things. Die rolls are much less frequent than in modern games. That's awesome if you like to act. That's awesome if you are good at telling your GM if your GM is lying. That's awesome if your GM is a good enough actor that he can convey to you whether he is lying or not. I have not encountered many people that could do any of these things. I, in fact, have encountered more than one player who has had some kind of an issue, a real-life personal issue, that made sure they couldn't do this. For example, a player that was autistic. He can't read these things. It isn't that he doesn't want to. It isn't that he's stupid. It is he cannot read them. His particular variety of autism. Not all autistic people are the same. But he just couldn't pick up those kind of cues. He couldn't tell if I was lying to him in real life. Let alone a GM who is playing a character in a game. So you're saying that unless you're an actor, don't bother playing this game. We don't want you. And that's what I see when I read these old school rules. And I've read a number of them. I see wall after wall after wall. It says, nope, can't go there. Nope, can't go there. Because unless you come with these skills and abilities as a player, as the person sitting at the table, you're not going to be able to play the game. Whereas in a complete game, a modern game as this document refers to it, all you have to do is have the numbers and the stat and the information on your character sheet. Yes, there can be less involvement in some ways. But there's nothing stopping a player from doing everything in an old school game in a modern or complete system. Nothing. There's nothing stopping them. It just also means they have the support structure of a rule system that actually lets them do what they want to do without having a minor in middle-level history or being an actor. Can you tell I feel passionately about this? Okay, and lastly, third Zen moment: heroic, not superhero. Games are all about human-sized scale, not super-powered scale. At first level, adventurers are basically more capable than are barely more capable than a regular person. And I find absolutely nothing about this that isn't applicable to modern or complete systems. Nothing whatsoever. There's nothing stopping any GM from running any system in the universe and starting out their players as nobodies. 0 to hero, as the saying goes. I almost always start players at first level. If I know something's going to be really tough, I might start them at third. I never actually started them at 0 before. I thought about doing that, never did it. I thought about setting up characters in a siege, have them all be people living in the siege, teenagers, as 0 level characters. And then they gain levels through the adventure, hopefully escaping and maybe even helping break the siege. You get the idea. But there's nothing stopping you. In fact, there's nothing stopping anyone from applying any of the Zen moments of old school gaming to other systems. That old school gamers seem to think they have cornered the market on these things. That modern, as they're referring to them here, or as I refer to them, complete systems, don't allow this to happen, which is bull. It's up to the GM and the players. But they always have the support structure under them. Modern games, complete systems, are built on a firm foundation, while the old school games were built on sand, and I can tell you the tide is coming in. And that tide is player disenfranchisement, unhappiness, bad blood, disappointment. Now, your experiences may be different. Awesome. Okay? I've run games where it was just me and a character, and I was literally making up the rules as we went. Literally making them up as we went. And we sat down, we started gaming, we had some dice, and I just went with it. It was a lot of fun. But guess what? I screwed up multiple times in a single session. And I know it was frustrating to the person. But because we were in this together, we were intimate, literally intimate, we let it slide. It couldn't have functioned long term. And it definitely couldn't have functioned with a group. I know what the old school stuff is like. I was there. I've played with these things. I've made them up myself. And I don't want them. I don't like them. And if you love them, game on, brothers and sisters. Game on. But I was asked to look at this, and I've looked at it, and while the document is excellent, I find the philosophy behind it wanting. I find the philosophy behind it insulting to people who don't have the background in the topics of the game they're playing. They're not medieval historians. They're not scientists in science fiction games. They're not spies in James Bond games. And it insults people who don't know how to act, who don't know how to read others. It's telling them, no, you are not welcome because we are just going to push you out of the game. And I've actually heard people in forum discussions say that if a person in an old school game can't toe the line, then they get rid of them. And that's some more bullshit. So, I guess that's my thoughts on this topic. I feel strongly about it. I've always been distressed that the gaming community decided that they were going to embrace this particular model. On the other side of the coin, I don't like narrative games either. I guess I'm just narrow-minded, huh? suppose I'm just tired of having people from both camps tell me that my wants in the game are wrong. And I've been an ass before about these topics. And I'm trying not to now. I'm trying just to talk about it from my position. And I really honestly want people to be happy with whatever they play. That's all that matters at the end of the day. But I think running an old school game is just asking people to be disappointed. About slapping up walls where walls don't need to exist. About eliminating certain people from the games. Because they're not going to be able to toe the line like they should. That's why I don't LARP. Because I can't. I have no desire to act like that. I have no desire to go pretend that I'm Sir Lord Decan, Lord Ranger in the forest. It's not my bag. I guess I see a lot of parallels between the old school gaming and LARPing, and why I don't have interest in either. I like the structure of modern games. Call me what you will, I guess. I hope I haven't disappointed the person that asked for this, and I hope that people can talk about this constructively. That would be nice. Like I said, this is just my opinion. If you don't like it, you didn't have to listen.